every so often, the greater American society advances way beyond law enforcement, and we struggle to catch up. And when we catch up, there's sort of like this peace and tranquility. But until that happens, we have to work doggedly hard and optimistically to meet these gaps. And one of the most consistent, blaring, ugly gaps in law enforcement is the way that we interact with the Black community.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue Podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue Podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue Podcast is coming at you right now. What is going on, my people? Welcome to the Black and Blue Podcast, where we celebrate diversity in U.S. law enforcement. My name is Dale. I am your master of ceremonies. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for the support. Before we get started, I want to ask you all to please smash those like and subscribe buttons wherever you're checking out this show right now. And click that bell icon too so you can be notified when new content drops right then and there. Today's guest is the chief of police of a little-known police department in the Big Apple, but he's here today to make sure we all know about this little gem. Everyone, please give a big Black and Blue welcome to New York Department of Citywide Administrative Services Police Department Chief Quchee Collins. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me. So it's a pleasure. I've been waiting to be a part of this for a while. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you came on, because this is a pleasure. This is a true honor. So I thank you. All right. So I see you repping Norfolk State right there. The green and gold there, green and yellow. is that your alma mater?
Yes, sir. Behold the green and gold. This is where I kind of earned my stripes. So, I had to make sure I came on with a little bit of swag, a little bit of merch representing the good old NSU.
All right. When'd you go there?
Oh, I went there in 1998. So that was fresh out of high school. Spent four and a half, if we're technically counting, one of the most beautiful times in my entire life. Something about the HBCU lifestyle, the culture there, the support structure that's in place. All I think is good memories when I think about Norfolk State.
All right. Yeah, that's a good experience, I'm sure. And that's in Virginia, right?
Absolutely. Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah. Are you from that area, or?
Well, yes and no. My father was military, so we moved around quite a bit. I spent my last couple of years in high school in Virginia Beach at Kempsville High, and then that was local to where I grew up. Actually, where I finished high school at, and then my father was deployed my senior year, so I didn't see him, the majority of my senior year, and going into my freshman year of college. And so I thought it would be smart to just stay local, near my family, my mother, my younger brother. And I went to Norfolk State University. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What was your major when you were there? In your 4.5 years? I
was an interdisciplinary studies major. Yeah. I was an INT major.
What is that?
It's now it's I guess it's fashionable, but it's essentially is when you combine different majors for a sort of a structured approach to work. And, for me, I wasn't, too certain about what I was getting into when I chose that major, but actually it's been immensely helpful in my career and sort of my style of what I do, which is, combining a little bit of technology, combining a little bit of sociology with the criminal justice system. And I was fortunate enough to sort of fall into that major, because it was purely just by me talking to my academic counselors, and they were pushing me in a direction of what they felt may pique my interest. And man, when I say they were spot on, that's all I do today is just blend different disciplines and try to figure things out, and
Right.
and half the job is problem solving, as you are fully aware.
Yes, yes. So your job today is the chief of police of that long name that I read off there at the beginning there. Tell everybody exactly what that department is and what do you guys do over there?
Absolutely. So for the sake of it not being lengthy, it's called DCAS Police, which is the initials. It's New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services Police, and we serve the same purpose as sort of what FPS does, which is the Federal Protective Service, and Capitol Police does, except we do that for the city of New York. So all of the city's leased, owned, and managed buildings, we provide security force protection and a law enforcement presence on site in and around those buildings throughout the 5 boroughs. And the city owns a number of courthouses. They own a number of civic buildings and municipal buildings. And so our job is to make sure that when people come in there to handle city business, when we have appointed officials or visitors or just, anyone coming off the street, we make sure they're safe and sound, and we're doing our job by keeping the peace and making sure things are safe.
Right. And you said throughout the boroughs there in New York, so you guys are spread pretty far and few between. How large is your department, Sworn?
Well, that's interesting because when I first came on, it was a very small department. Right now, we're just over or approximately around 120 sworn, and so when I first came on, it was probably less than half of that. And so
Oh
we've been
wow.
working, very diligently. I couldn't be more proud of my team. Just trying to get more staff on, get them well trained, and have them have an understanding of what their mission is. And so we've grown in the department, but we're always looking to add more to that puzzle, because much like you saw on January 6th, it only takes, one bad day to really
Yeah.
show how critical some of these government buildings are to sort of the fabric of our democratic process. So, we're definitely always looking to add on. As soon as we get past any budget concerns that the pandemic has kind of waved our way,
Mm-hmm.
it's just been a consistent mission just to add more personnel, quality, uh, smart, competent folks to the team.
Right, right. And you said when you first got there, it was like less than half of what you guys have now. What was the cause of that? Just a lot of attrition, retirements. People weren't applying for the job. They didn't see a need for more sworn. What was the cause of that? You think?
Well, I think it was a combination of a couple of things. The department itself is relatively new. It's a baby in terms of police departments. It was formed shortly after 9/11 for obvious reasons. There was a void or a gap there that the city felt it needed to fill, and so I was their second chief in place. And so one of the things that I saw was that we were using and still sort of use supplemental contracts, security contracts, to kind of fill voids, but it wasn't providing that same workplace violence protection, that law enforcement presence, that competent um, um, uh, community customer service centered law enforcement that we provide today. It just was we were dropping the ball on that a little bit. So we got together, we put our brains together, and we just been recruiting and pushing and developing the program ever since.
Nice, nice. And then how long you been chief there? You said you were the second chief in place.
Yeah, I came on in 2016, and so I'll be closing out my fifth year. Um, uh, Happy. Didn't see the journey. You never really see the journey, right? So
Right.
5 years, 5 wonderful years here. A lot of headaches, but also a lot of great moments and accomplishments that my team and I were able to kind of pull together. So
Yeah.
extremely proud of the last 5 years. And I'm a little bit past I'm a little bit past the marker because police chiefs, we're 3.5 years averaging. That's usually our stint, unless
Yeah.
So I'm just feeling fortunate right now, and very reflective. I guess when you get to a certain point, you really just start to look back and look at all the things you're able to do, and the people you've kind of seen grow, and that's been a major part of my time here.
Right, right. Yeah, the 3.5, that's kind of like the playing span of a NFL running back. But they say about 3 to 5
Absolutely.
years is their lifespan. If you go past that, and that's just all gravy, you pass that. So, yeah, that's how Chiefs are, and they kind of move around. You didn't come up through DCAS. Is that your first agency? Where'd you come from?
Well, my first agency, I don't know if you look over one of these shoulders here. I started actually in Virginia, Northern Virginia, at Arlington County Sheriff's Office, and that was probably back in 2005 ish. I'm sort of dating myself, and I had amazing opportunities to sort of to have my hands in a lot of pots there, and I got different opportunities of leadership. I was on their Sheriff Emergency Response Team, which is our version of a SWAT team. I was a full-time academy instructor at Northern Virginia Criminal Justice Training Academy, which is just a amazing time. One of the best positions I've ever had in my career. I was the lead defensive tactics instructor for my agency of 250 sworn. So I was responsible for conducting safe and efficient training every year for the staff. Got a couple of promotions tossed here and there, a couple special projects, and just was really blessed with a wealth of experience of doing things and sort of figuring it out. And police. I like to say this to anyone considering joining up. Law enforcement is one of those fields where it is just so diverse, and the opportunity to do so many things. It's like a bunch of disciplines rolled into one, and anyone thinking about that and wanting excitement in their career path, and an opportunity to do anything from street patrol to cybersecurity. The really you run the gamut in law enforcement with the things that you can really take on and learn and grow yourself through. And so that's been just one of my just campaign speeches for anyone considering law enforcement. It's never a dull moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that attracted me to law enforcement is, I tried the jobs where you're sitting in the office for a little while, and that just started killing me. I couldn't just be sitting in my cubicle all day. I
Yeah.
had to be out and about. I even left law enforcement for a little bit to try that, and I was, no, I got to get back into. I could not be sitting in that cubicle. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
sort
I
of death
totally.
by keystroke there.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like law enforcement. You deal with different situations and different people. I mean, you're always gonna have your frequent flyers that you deal with, but for the most part, it's different things every day and different. It's not all fun and gravy, but sometimes you got to deal with the heat, and you got to deal with the cold, and over there you deal with the snow, and yeah, I guess you guys
Oh
are
yeah.
used to it, but I'm out here in Cali. I'm not used to the snow, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Lucky
it's
you.
raining. Yeah, it's raining out here today. We don't even know how to drive in the rain out here, so people just get a little
That's
bit
great.
of
That's great.
a little bit of
Well, you
sweat on
got
the
to
road, and
remember, I'm
people
from
just
down south. Yeah, I'm
Well,
from
yeah,
down
yeah.
south, so this snow
Okay, yeah,
thing
yeah.
was a little bit of an adjustment for me. But
Right.
luckily, I brought some winter coats up, so I was good to go. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
absolutely.
How's that
Yeah.
adjustment now?
I like to call myself a Brooklynite now. I think, I'm a New York City person now. I would have never assumed, I would go any further than Virginia. My family's originally from the South, originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and, where I was born before we sort of shipped off as a military dependent. And then, but when I came to the city, it's almost magical how you realize is a difference between visiting New York and living in New York. It has its
Yeah.
own life. It truly is a beautiful city. There's there's a lot that you can get into. There's a lot of different variety of things you can introduce yourself to, and I've really appreciated my time in the city.
Yeah.
Is it long term? Who knows? But I will say it dispelled a lot of ideas I had about New York before arriving, just by living here and being a New
Yeah.
Yorker.
No doubt. Yeah, me and the fam went there a few years ago. I love New York. I had a great time, saw a lot of things, and I felt we were there like a week, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we could have seen. I want to go back during Christmas, during the ball
Oh,
drop whenever this COVID is done with. So I would love to experience that. So yeah,
you,
it's
you talk
good
about
times.
something to see around that Christmas time, especially if the snow is not, unbearable. It's just right.
Right.
You
Yeah.
got Rockefeller Center. You got the ball dropping over New Year's. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
just so much here. One of the best descriptions that I came up with when I first got here to my down south folks was, it's like each borough, it's its own little universe. And so, you could live your whole life in Brooklyn and you'll have a universe to explore, or you can venture out and it's just like so much going on, so much beauty. One really quick thing about New York that most people don't know is New York has some of the beautiful outdoor parks you'll ever run into. And it's just, I live maybe 10 minutes from Prospect Park, and it's just beautiful. You don't know it from the outside, but once you go walking in it, it's so scenic and surreal. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you learn to appreciate the little pockets of beauty that New York has to offer.
No doubt. When we were there, we went to Central Park and we did the whole bike. We rented some bikes, and that park is massive. I mean, it just went on
Yes,
for days and days, and yeah, I had a great time. Can't wait to get back there. Can't wait to get back there. So
you make
I
sure you
mentioned
let me
there.
know when you come back. Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. I mentioned that when things get back to normal, because COVID right now, we kind of everyone's getting vaccinated and all that, and hopefully we can get back to normal. How did COVID affect you out there in New York, you and your family and your department in particular?
Well, I mean, for the first few months, if you recall, New York was the epicenter, and
Yeah,
it was, you know, almost indescribable what the experience was. You're talking about a bustling city alive with so much vigor, and it really just turned into like one of those, Wild Wild West movies where the bushel of hay kind of whispers down the road
yeah,
and
yeah.
nobody's out and the streets were completely empty. And up until last year, I had never seen New York in that site. It reminded me of a movie. I think I Am Legend with Will Smith,
Oh,
where it just
right, right.
nobody was out.
Yeah,
But aside from that, the pandemic really ravaged the city for a solid 2 months or so. And fortunately, we a lot of the officers were able to manage. We lost one civilian staff member because of due to COVID, and then a couple from the overall agency's executive team as well. So we've been managing like everyone else, but it was really tough at first, but we banded together. My guys, so proud of my guys. They didn't miss a beat, and I don't know how it was for you guys out there, but they throw everything at law enforcement. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this, and so to
yeah,
see the troops respond the way they did, you know, that's just a testament to the type of people who take on this job, the type of culture that exists within this job. We always see the
hmm,
negative, but there's a lot of beauty in leadership and taking on this responsibility of putting on that shield every day. So, I was really
yeah.
proud of the way we responded under the circumstances.
Right. Yeah, it was tough on a lot of departments, a lot of people, a lot of families. How about your family? How did COVID affect your family?
We've been blessed. Listen, the Father has taken care of us. We have been
Mm,
extra careful. We had a routine in my household where when we hit the door, because I was at work. I didn't miss a day for the first 6 months of the pandemic, and so when we hit the door, it was sort of like that whole strip down, wash your hands. We every single recommendation that the CDC had, we were following it. We couldn't get enough hand hand sanitizer.
right.
So fortunately, my family's been good, and my family down in Virginia, my mother, my father, my brother, they've been taking care of themselves to that same exact level. And so I'm fortunate to have people in my life that really take this seriously and that care about each other, to want to do the right thing on a consistent level, because some folks just they don't see it the same way
Mm,
the
yep.
rest of the world sees it, or maybe that we feel they should see it, that's okay. But there was just an amazing amount of responsibility for my family, my brother especially, because he was close to my parents, really doing his thing, taking care of himself, so he didn't cross expose them. And we did the same up here. So we've been
Yeah.
fortunate. My family in Georgia too. We all been very blessed, and we're happy about that.
Yeah, you keep saying, the South, and I keep forgetting that Virginia technically is the South, but, I don't think of it that way when it's, right by D.C. and all that. I guess depending on where in Virginia, you're located, but I keep forgetting it is technically the South.
Some Virginians might not think it's the South, might not
Right.
say
That's,
it's the
yeah.
South
Yeah.
if you ask them. But I've had the privilege of living in southeastern Virginia, which was right down there near North Carolina, and we know North Carolina is definitely the South.
Right.
And my roots are, like I said, my roots are in Atlanta. I'm a down south Georgia boy at heart. I still rock a Braves hat on my head when I walk around. It's not a Yankees hat. Sorry, New Yorkers.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow. I
yeah.
might have to edit that part out.
Nah, they got they got to face the truth.
Get you
So
impeached. We're going to get you impeached out there in New York.
nah. Hopefully they're used to it by now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's Virginia is one of those states where it's right in the middle, and Maryland too. Technically, Maryland is down south, but if
Yeah.
you ask a Marylander or a Virginia if they're from down south, they may not say the same.
No, they may not. They may definitely.
Right,
And then,
right.
another thing that affected us all, this past summer was everything that affected BLM with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all those other incidents that, kind of snowballed into an avalanche and broke the camel's back with George Floyd. And then we had a bunch of protests. You guys protect, those buildings out in New York. How did the protests and all that affect you guys with your operations?
Dale, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. We were really in the thick of things when it comes to the protests. Obviously, NYPD, they did a tremendous job of, trying to safeguard the streets. It's almost an impossible task. But when you talk about being right in the thick of things, most of our buildings are right where the rest of the nation probably viewed those protests happening. We're right over there off the Brooklyn Bridge, and a lot of our buildings and our officers had to in the buildings had to do take some extreme measures to make sure that the people were safe inside, as well as the buildings itself were safe. But there's a lot of property damage, a lot of graffiti, you name it. All that stuff happened right where we suit up every day. And so again, it's just the tremendous efforts of my staff. I can't say enough about my staff showing up under COVID and the protests, which in my opinion, these protests, that's definitely the right idea to bring attention to the issues that have been going on and with the black community and law enforcement. But definitely when things got a little dicey, our guys, and gals showed their true colors and stood behind that badge and stood tall. So we're happy about that.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And you being the chief of police and being an African American, and what the show is, black and blue, we got that duality where we had to, do our jobs, and we understand law enforcement. 99% of us out there doing the right thing, but then we get that 1% that isn't out there doing the right thing. So some of these incidents I talk about, we're in the wrong. What's your feeling about these so-called bad apples that are out there, kind of painting a broad brush of us in law enforcement?
If I'm being honest, and I always try my very best to be just honest about what I feel. The issue in law enforcement is the same everywhere else in the nation. There is systemic racism. I personally believe that to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
And every few years, we're trying to push the profession to advance beyond the bad apples. If you subscribe to that thought process. But there's a lot of work for us to do in order to really drive home and sort of meet the people we serve where their exact need is. And so there's a lot of work to be done on the law enforcement side. Bad apples, they do exist in every profession. I don't necessarily
Yep.
think that's a bad apple. I think it's just more so, folks slip through the cracks, or, there are folks who, are influenced by subcultures that exist, and you're in a department, so you
Yep.
understand there are subcultures that exist within the department. That someone in my position, I have little influence over over these cultures. One of the things that I hear a lot is about policy. Policy is great, but culture eats policy for breakfast.
Oh yeah.
So I can construct and design perfect policies and strategic plans to get us to that point where we are, we're not part of that 1% or those few that choose to do the wrong thing behind the badge under the color of law. And, but still, the culture of the organism, the culture of the agency is what's going to prevail in the end. And when you look back, you really got me excited about this, because when you look back at several commissions, even the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, there's a lot of work we can do. And I was talking to I was at a training course, and one of the instructors there said, every so often the greater American society advances way beyond law enforcement, and we struggle to catch up. And when we catch up, there's sort of like this peace and tranquility. But until that happens, we have to work doggedly hard and optimistically to meet these gaps. And one of the most consistent, blaring, ugly gaps in law enforcement is the way that we interact with the Black community. And don't get me wrong, there are bad actors in these communities that we must and have to address. We have to do that's our job. We have to keep the people safe. We gotta chase bad guys, and we have to take police action. But just the way we engage with the community definitely could use a lot of improvement. And these protests last summer was just the boiling pot of that desire to have a better police force protecting them from the community. And if you're on the job like I'm on the job, you look to your left and your right, and you look at your organization. And if you're not saying if you're not saying it has the potential to get better, then I don't know if you're growing in what you're doing. Even the best departments can get better at something, can get better at community engagement, can bring in innovative ideas. And so we just need to keep pushing that. We need to understand who we serve, including the Black community, which has had, has suffered. You see a lot of these police chiefs are apologizing, and police commissioners are apologizing, not for their direct actions all the time, but just for the historic influence their particular departments have had on their respective communities. And so that's a start. But beyond apologies, we need to take some measured actions to accomplish this engagement. Maybe we can use a lot more female leadership, a lot more African American female leadership among the ranks, diversity among the ranks. We definitely need that to sort of make it better for our communities.
Yeah. So your department now is more of a specialty department, where there won't be, calls for service per se, as far as, well, let me take that back. You may have domestics because, things do happen in the workplace. You got a lot of workplace violence. Kind of hone in on what sort of activities your officers would deal with on a daily.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that, Dale. So we've had domestics, we've had assaults, we've had all that stuff on site, and our service calls definitely look a little bit different. We're not being dispatched via an RMP or police cruiser to a location per se, but when our service calls come through, it's typically for some sort of either EDP on site. We've had you can pretty much run the gamut. We've had DOAs in the building. It's anything you can imagine, just on a lower scale, because it's a workplace. And so we don't have as many issues as the greater New York City community does. But we've had quite a few incidents in my tenure here that required a law enforcement response, and that were actually, service calls dispatched out to officers. Just not on the wide scale that you see across the city.
Yeah. So, a big
And some of the more
issue. Right, right. And a big issue obviously is workplace violence. You got the the domestic side, and then you got the terrorist side with people coming in. Do you guys do lots of training with your people in your building, your workers, and letting them know about workplace violence and what they can do, and or if there's an active shooter, what sort of things they need to do to run, hide, fight, or any of that type of stuff?
Oh, great question. Absolutely. So one of the initiatives I had when I first was appointed as chief was I looked and I noticed that we didn't have a civilian response to active shooter process. So we got a lot of people in our buildings. In one building alone, is something like 5,000 people in there on any given day. Not that doesn't even include the visitors.
Right.
That's just the workers, and that's just one building in one borough. So one of my initiatives was to start for DCAS police an active shooter, civilian response program where, I went out personally and I taught, I want to say in the upwards of 5,000 plus city workers, just, how to respond and the recommendations. New York is a little bit different. They do the ABCs, avoid, barricade, and confront, but it's still the same information. And so I did that for a number of years, and occasionally, due to COVID, obviously we're not doing it in person now, but occasionally I'll still have to come in and I'll speak to a group or a tenant group or new hires on the job and sort of give them that. And then internally, we made our active shooter program more robust. They didn't have that when I came here. And so that was one of the things we instituted. We got the agency to purchase our blue guns, and every academy class that comes through, our tactical training unit trains them specifically on how to respond to to active shooters in the building or any sort of mass casualty event. And we're just continuing to build that. We have sort of TAC Med. So everything that you can imagine, because that's our focus. Our focus. We're not stopping bank robbers. What goes on in that building is our focus. So having a sort of a 360 program where we're looking at, what the executive response should be, which was something that we were able to put together for them. What a recovery program would look like for our buildings. What civilian response should look like, and then what the DCAS police response should look like for an active shooter. And so that program has taken a life of its own. It continues to grow. It continues to get better. And so I'm proud of that we were able to do that here.
No doubt, no doubt. And I'm sure these buildings have different, a lot of different functions. When COVID, before COVID, and hopefully after, were there a bunch of buildings with children in them?
Well, there are some buildings that host. So New York City does. Sometimes they host schools or classes or grades in some
Mm-hmm.
of our buildings. So there definitely are some buildings with that, and that's been a concern that we've had to sort of
Yeah.
address with what our posture was going to be with that, and a lot of questions trying to figure out, what the right moves and the right steps and what would be, digestible for the parents and the teachers and whatnot. But it's very few buildings that we do that actually have kids, but we do have a handful of them that do sort of like a
Yeah.
in government building school system setup or
Right.
classroom setup.
Or maybe even workplace daycare. Any of those? I'm sure there's a couple of those going on.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have those in our buildings. I wouldn't be surprised. I just know
Yeah.
that there are specific buildings we have that definitely have children in them, and that's always been like that bright blinking alarm of
Oh yeah.
how we're going to handle that.
Yep.
And number of discussions with their security versus what DCAS police is going to do, and so it's I wouldn't say we're just like anywhere else, but we definitely have similar issues and problems.
Yeah. No doubt. And then staying on the topic of kids, when you were a kid, was something? Was this always something you wanted to do with law enforcement? What was your journey into the profession there?
Man, when I was a kid, I was a huge Beverly Hills Cops fan. Like that, Axel Foley was my guy,
Okay.
and
Eddie
so
Murphy there. Yeah.
he made Yeah, he made policing look cool to me. So I thought that was when I watched those movies. That was the first I ever really considered. Like maybe I could, this looks, it looks like me. I'm seeing some representation there. And so as I grew older, and also I was a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes books. I used to be the kid with the sheet over his head and the flashlight in bed with the book, reading Sherlock
Wow.
Holmes books. That was actually me. So when you see that stuff on TV and think that's not real, now I'm here to tell you that stuff
That
is
was
real.
you.
I used to read a lot of detective books, and so it's kind of been with me, for a lot of those years, and and then as I grew older, the field of exactly what I wanted to do started to narrow down a little bit more. But I don't know if it was the only thing I wanted to do. There's a lot of other, when you're a kid, you want to, you want to do so much, and you want to,
Right.
but definitely, this has always been an interest of mine. Teaching has always been an interest of mine as well. So a lot of my years are spent being a police instructor, first in Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, and now in New York State. So, like I said, law enforcement, it runs the gamut on what you can do. So, I've just been fortunate to realize a lot of my dreams that I had as a child
Yeah.
through this profession that we share. So, that
Yeah.
better than anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. No
It's a
doubt. Yeah.
lot to
So,
do. Yeah.
yep. So you were the kid out there solving little mysteries in the neighborhood, huh?
I'm the, I was the kid. I was the kid who thought he could solve just about any issue. And look, my mother is probably somewhere hearing me talk about, feeling me that I'm talking about that, because any
Yeah.
problem, I was the one that could figure it out.
There you
And
go.
and I really believed in my powers of deduction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was definitely in the works by grand design. If the father had anything to do with it, and
Yeah.
knew where my heart and mind was as a child, this is definitely in the works.
Right. So when it came to fruition, I know you said your pops was in the military, so that's kind of the same path there. The family didn't have any trepidation about you going into law enforcement. The family, friends. What was that conversation like?
Well, yeah. So my story is probably similar to a lot of black officers. You know, 50% of my family and friends, they give you that sideways look, like, what are you
Right.
doing? And they look at you like you. I mean, almost from day one, they look at you like you're a narc or you're the enemy from day
Right.
from day one.
Yep.
And that was an unusual feeling. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to people that I've known all my life looking at me in a different way. And I would say it was a challenge for a lot of years because I actually lost some friends. I lost a lot of friends, and even some family members to this day will still, they won't feel like they're able to be their authentic self. Their behavior will change when they come around me. But what in that time frame, I got older, and those kids that I grew up with in high school and college, they went on to have families, and they matured in life and recognized that my job and who I am, are they're two different things. They're the same, but they're two different things. Like I'm QE on the job, and I'm QE when you see me. They call me Q. So I was able to sort of reestablish a lot of those friendships, and the really important ones came back around, and that was what is really good for me to see. It was very hard at first, but the longer I was on the job, and the more people got accustomed to who I was, and they realized that I didn't really change, but as serious as I was about football and going to shoot hoop, I'm as serious about law enforcement, and
Right.
so a lot of respect just came over time.
Yeah, yeah. And then you being in the profession, whenever something went down, were you the one that always had to give the opinion? Everyone would call, what did QE think about this? Tell me about this. Does that still go down? Like with everything that happened with the BLM, did family and friends want to get your opinion about it?
You know, yes, to answer that question, man, listen, family reunions,
Oh yeah.
cookouts,
Oh yeah.
parties,
Oh yeah.
dinners, holidays. And if I'm being honest, some of the time I really enjoy being that sort of authority to say, wait a minute, you have to understand from the other side.
Yeah.
But then, especially since, I've had an opportunity to become a chief, I've just been very less interested in explaining a different side of life versus just having a general understanding that we're all human beings and trying to figure this thing out. Like, it's like, you take a black person in any setting and sometimes they're called upon to answer for all black people, like we exist on this monolithic scale, right? And it's the same thing for us, right? We're black officers. We're in a situation, and something happens halfway across the country, and your girlfriend's looking at you, crazy because she's like, well, is this what you guys do? Is this how you get down? Or your aunt has a lot of questions, and and so I think the happy medium for me is to, first and foremost, if I don't know you, there's absolutely no reason for me to come to your defense. So I'm not one of those persons in law enforcement that when I see something that a cop does halfway across the country, I'm giving policy and use of force training and to justify whatever they did. I don't know the situation. I don't know that person. Same as it would be for any person from my neighborhood that did something. I'm not going to jump out there. So I'm very slow to sort of formulate an opinion. And then the second thing ultimately is, I just try to be my authentic self, so folks, they don't want to ask these questions of me because they understand who I am, and they understand that the way I do the job is an example, and whatever they're seeing is contrary to that.
Right.
So it's not that I refuse to answer these questions, but you know how it is, brother. You're called upon to. In certain groups, you're called upon to answer for all black people in the history of the country. And then in other times, you're called upon to answer for all the actions of law enforcement. And we don't know these folks. We don't know these folks.
Right.
And if we're being honest with ourselves, we don't know the situation as well until all of the details and facts come out. I understand the pain. And that's what I think we fall short. There's a lot of pain associated with what goes on in our communities, what happens to our communities. And if we're not human enough to acknowledge that, then the game is already lost. It just really is. An officer could be doing his very best to do the job the right way, and that could result in someone losing their life. And you'll have some officers. That'll adopt the attitude of, hey, screw that guy. He was, he had to do what he had to do. But we don't think, like, even though you had to do your job, let's acknowledge a life was lost. Yeah. Someone's going to move on without a person, a loved one with them in this world. That stuff is real. And I think we dehumanize so much of what goes on in our society, not just in law enforcement. We dehumanize each other. We dehumanize, the profession. Cops aren't real people. That's why I'm so happy you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because, people don't understand. We are real family oriented, religious, church going, hardworking, good hearted, funny, talented people behind this shield.
Yes.
And I hope when officers go into these communities, they realize that these kids that they may not be able to readily identify with, they're hardworking, funny, talented, educated people as well. Yes. And when we get back to that, I think things are gonna, when we get back to it, when we realize how important it is. Right. That's what it is. Right. Yeah. When we realize how important our humanity is, I think things will shift a little bit. They may not change on a wide scale, but they'll shift a little bit. And each shift is important.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is why I wanted to do this show, to show, humanizing us and showing that, that we are those people that you that you just named. We are the hard workers. We go to church. Some of us go to church. Some of us go to the club. Some of us, tend to
We
our
go, yeah.
gardens. Yeah, some of us tend to our gardens. Some of us, tend to our cars. We do all this. Some of us are DJs. Some of us play football. We do all these sorts of things. We're not a monolithic culture, just like being black isn't a monolithic culture. Sometimes maybe not so much now, you being the chief, but coming up in law enforcement through the years, did you ever find yourself on the flip side of that, where you had to kind of explain the black experience to your non-black coworkers, to your Caucasian coworkers?
Man, that's a that's a heavy one. So the short answer to that is yes. So, but it's much like my other answer. People who genuinely want to know, I will I will sit down and listen. There's not a court. I have a legitimate open door policy. My lieutenants, my assistant chiefs, they all hate it, but I have a legitimate open door policy, right?
Okay.
As long as it's scheduled, right? I can't stop every 5 minutes,
Right.
but I will stop and talk to just about anybody, and you'll have my ear, and you may not get what you're expecting or what you want to hear, but I will listen to you and I will tell you the honest truth as I know it, right? And so I've had these conversations with white counterparts throughout the course of my career. But sometimes, what I had to draw the line is it has to be someone who genuinely wants to know. They genuinely want to know. Because if you
Yeah.
just want to argue or you want to debate, I'm not here to debate that. That's not, to me, that's not even something up to debate. We're talking about understanding another human being. Yeah, I get it. Our skin is black. This chocolate brown skin that we love. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? And not everyone loves it back. I get
Mm-hmm.
that, right? I
Mm-hmm.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not gonna debate you so that you can understand me. That's never gonna happen. And when I learned that some people just want to have conversations to debate, that's when I sort of turn the volume down on those folks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I've sat there and I've really ran into a bunch of people who had just this earnest desire to know, to get better. They were raised a different way and they just truly didn't understand. And they're in their interaction with me sort of opened their eyes. And the way I handle my business, which wasn't always perfect, man. I came out of the academy RoboCop. That's how I was. I'm not saying anything bad about my academy, but I came out of my academy really tough edged, and
Okay.
it took me some time to regain, who Q was,
Right.
and when I did, you know, I felt a lot better going home every day, and then I also felt a lot better about what I did in front of people who were on the job who don't look like me, because they're
Mm-hmm.
seeing an example of, yeah, he's one of the toughest deputies that you're going to ever run into, but also he has a big heart, he has compassion, also he knows his stuff. Also, he's keyed up on officer safety to the max. So
Mm-hmm.
it's when they're seeing all of these things, and they really want to know, man, I'll sit down and I'll chop it up with anybody for as long as I need to chop it up with them, for them to understand what they need to understand. As long as it's not coming from a spirit of trying to debate me, because, that's not a debatable issue. We're
Right.
we're
Right.
human beings. We deserve love, care, happiness, and in this country, we have equal protection under the law, and that's the way it is.
Yes, yes, yes. And then a lot of it, what I was getting at was, just the way some of our culture interacts with people, how we take things, how we say things. Maybe some people are more animated than others. And we just want to let our counterparts know that, no, this person's not being defiant. This person is just, some people are just more
Animated.
animated than others. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's no
there's
need to
definitely.
escalate, because this isn't an escalated situation.
So I do a little reading here and there. Uh, I feel like 90% of what happens in life is sometimes if the person isn't have self awareness, is motivated from fear, right? And so
Right.
explaining that, uh, our people are happy, joyous, boisterous. We
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, as I've been talking with my hands probably this whole interview. I gotta
Right.
Stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we
So see,
talk with our hands.
mine are below the camera here. So you see, yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Right, right, absolutely. And we like to invade each other's private space. We like to talk. We like to be demonstrative when we talk, and those aren't always pre-assault indicators. And there is a learning curve in our community. There definitely is. Just like there's a learning curve for some of us who enter this profession. If you want to go, if you want
Sure.
to
Yeah.
talk about that, there's definitely a learning curve for that as well, because this is not a profession that's dominated by black folks, right?
Right.
There's a lot of black folks in it, but it's not dominated by that. So there is for some folks, not everyone, there's a learning curve, and there's a learning curve for our communities. And really, it's the scale of your willingness. Are you willing to sit down? Are you willing to learn the community that you're policing? And I've definitely had to explain that they don't mean no harm by that. They're just
Yeah.
getting loud. They're selling wolf tickets right now because they're in
Yep.
front of their
Yep.
girlfriend, or this is, trust me, this is light. This is light work. We're gonna be okay. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
definitely been the case on a time or two. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess that could be said anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Because it's funny that you said that, because about even us entering the law enforcement, we had to kind of learn on that scale too. Kind of on that learning curve too. Because my kids clown me a lot about the code switching that they perceive me doing a lot.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they call me on it when either I'm on the phone or maybe even doing this podcast, as opposed to when I'm speaking in a professional manner. And I got to tell them, yeah, you got to, when I'm speaking to my boys, or if I'm speaking to somebody from work, said, yes, you do have to switch up how you talk to your boss, to your coworkers. I mean, you just can't be like, hey, what's up, chief? No.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that,
Exactly.
especially in a paramilitary environment where
Especially,
you have
yes,
rank
yes.
structure, and yeah, that code switching is definitely a part of the game. Like, I don't know anybody who comes in my office and they, chief, what's good? Like, that doesn't
Right.
happen, with me,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna walk into those circumstances. They're not gonna catch me doing that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so you that's spot on, man. You
Yeah.
got it. That's
What up,
spot on.
Mayor? You're not gonna be,
Yeah,
Mr.
right,
Mayor, what's
right,
happening?
right,
What's
right.
happening? No,
They're gonna
and they understand
that'll
that
be
too,
the
because
longest side eye.
right. And they understand that too. I mean,
Right,
because
right.
they know in school settings, they don't talk to the teacher like that. You bet not talk to any elders like that. You being a kid, because
Absolutely.
so I mean they get it. They just clowning me. So it's all fun.
That's
So,
good though. That's
yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, you mentioned that when your time in Virginia and all the way up to now, you making the chief police out here at DCAS in New York, mentors along the way. Were there people that kind of pushed you in the right directions, told you, what you should be doing, what sort of courses would help you interview? What was that process like for you coming up from rank to rank to rank?
Listen, I gotta say this. Mentorship is probably one of the most important aspects to our job. Mentorship can really make a difference if you turn out to be a good cop or a bad cop. It's really
Yeah,
that simple. It has less to do with promotion, and that's great. These are all benefits to having a great mentor and having a good head on your shoulders. But really, mentorship is it. And I've had phenomenal mentors. Three off the back of the hand. I'm going to mention in order. Wanda Younger, Lieutenant Wanda Younger, just amazing mentor. I mean, scrutiny for detail, getting the job right, treating people right, being who you say you are, being dependable and reliable, having the courage to hold, that oath we swear, the courage to hold ourselves and others accountable. Well, she was
yeah,
really about that life. She was really about that life. I had another mentor in the academy. His name was Greg Brown. He's a chief of police for Leesburg, I think, out in Virginia. And just when he walks in, you can pull out a notepad and take notes on his leadership qualities, because that list is going to go on forever. And again, upright standing person, authoritative, but smart, super intellectual, thoughtful in his responses, thoughtful in his actions. And I was fortunate enough to pull a lot of his characteristics, or try to emulate that try my best impression of that in my career. And then Greg Thomas when I got to New York. And so what's interesting about that, to be honest with you, I'm sort of one of those guys who believes in doing it on their own, not because I think I got all the answers, it's because I've had challenges asking for help. And Greg Thomas is one of those mentors who sort of broke me out of that. He said, he first to let me know, hey, you have people here, that, that can help you, that can support you. That you can become part of the support structure if you just reach out. And so he enabled me to sort of break out some of that. Maybe it's even shyness. I'm not insecure. I'm not insecure enough to not say that it may have been some shyness, but there's a lot of things that
you don't strike me as being shy, Chief.
You say that. But I'm learning this new term, and I hope I get it right. It's called ambivert. So it's an introverted extrovert. So someone who's occasionally an extrovert when they in the right circumstances, but in reality, they're they rather be in their own space. And so I think I'm probably a healthy mixture of that. I'm a healthy mixture of that. I love to party, but also I love coming back to the house and spending time on the couch reading or watching the Warriors play. So,
which Warriors we talking about? Basketball?
Golden State. Golden State. Yeah.
I had them on TV here in a minute ago. They were playing the Clippers, so they were getting the brakes beat off of them there in a little bit. So, I'm out here in Cali. So
down year.
Yeah, I'm out here in SoCal, so I'm a Laker dude. So you know how that go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
have you always been a Laker guy? You have to be out of SoCal.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be. But I've been out here since I was like 13, 14. I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, but I've been out here since I was like 14. So, yeah, that's about the time where you got to pick and choose who you're gonna be with. Yeah. We didn't have a team in Columbus, so it is what it is. All we had was Cleveland. I wasn't about to pick Cleveland back in the 80s, in the 90s. So
I don't think anyone was gonna pick Cleveland back then.
Yeah. Brad Daugherty, and who was that? The white dude, Craig Elo.
Yeah, Craig Elo.
The one who Jordan hit that shot over. They always show that one when he up in the air with the fist. Yeah, those are the days.
Jordan's my guy. I know we live in the LeBron era, but Jordan's my guy, man. That guy. I grew up consuming everything Jordan I saw. I don't think I missed a game in high school, but definitely.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So I appreciate you coming on. I want to ask you real quick. So everyone watching the show here, and if you listen, I'll spell it out. The Chief's first name is spelled Quchee, but the C is silent, so it's Quchee Collins. Is there some significance to that name, or how'd you come up with that? Or not you, but how'd your parents come up with that name?
I would love to sit here and tell you that I'm a lost prince of Wakanda, but that's actually not the case.
Maybe Zamunda, because Coming to America 2 just came out.
That's right, just dropped. No, we had a very close. We grew up in Atlanta. My family's from Atlanta, west end of Atlanta, rough part of Atlanta, and they had a very close friend of the family. She was almost like a sister to my aunt and my mother, and she loved the movie Roots. Okay, and so she sort of lobbied to name me an African name, and she said she would create it. So she created the name and the spelling and the pronunciation of this name, and and so they sort of switched what was going to be my first name to my middle name. And this became my name. And, when I was a kid, this was the knuckle up conversation, cause when your kids are tough, kids are tough. So it was a couple fights I had to kind of, go through. But as I got older and I realized how unique it was, and, obviously the spelling is different from the pronunciation. It's Quchee Collins. And so I just I learned to appreciate it, man. And I wouldn't see myself being any other name, but it took some adjusting to as a kid, especially when I moved around as I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I even had that. My first name Dale. I didn't want to be a Dale. It didn't seem tough enough or street enough. Back in the day. My middle name is Robert.
Yeah.
So sometimes my name's Robert. But I embrace Dale now. I'm a Dale. So yes,
Right.
indeed.
And I used to
indeed.
go by, I had a bunch of nicknames, brother. I had Q was one that sort of stood the test of time, but but when I realized just how very unique it was, and how
Yes.
there's not another Q he walking around, at least as far as I know. It's not
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
Q
Yeah.
he walking around.
Yeah. No doubt.
I really appreciate it. So thanks,
Yeah.
Mom. Thanks, Dad.
Oh
And the
yeah.
person who named me, she actually passed away before I really got a chance to meet her.
Oh wow.
So, I don't have the inside story to what she was thinking when she created the name, but,
Yeah.
definitely fits me, suits me.
Yes. Yes. And then at Norfolk, were you a Q? Can you at least say that you were a
No,
Q?
brother.
You wanted a Q?
Man, no, I wasn't, man. I didn't get the
That
opportunity, man.
seems that's a match made in heaven, man. What happened with that?
That's another long story, man. Definitely the interest was there, but college was mainly about football. I played
Okay.
football at Norfolk State, and then after
Would you
that it was
play?
just focus. I played safety. I played
Okay.
safety. Trying to get on the field as much as possible, man. And college was a lot more competition than high school. High school, you was the man. You get to college, and everybody's just as fast, and
Right.
everybody
Yep.
running. But play safety again. That football and just going to that HBCU made my college years some of the best experiences I had in life, man. It really, really did. I can really say I became a man in school because I rolled out of school with just a greater appreciation for our culture and what we go through, but also, fully prepared to take on the world and show, what I could do. And I owe those, honestly, to playing football under that system, and and going to an HBCU.
All right. All right. All right, Chief. I appreciate you coming on, man. This is real fun. Got a lot of good insight. A lot of good insight from you about you and your agency and everything that's going on out there in the NYC. So I appreciate that. But you're not done yet. I got a little something for you.
Right.
You know how we do here. Got a little game, a question and answer session. This one here is called.
Last night I saw a superhero, he was black. He said, "This is for the street, Black Lightning is back."
All right, this is called Black Lightning. It's just a quick fire question and answer session. I'm just going to throw a question at you. You just tell me what's going on at the top of your head, all right?
All right.
All right, you ready? Let's do this. So you out in New York now, but you were in Virginia. So you got to tell me this, Pharrell or Timbaland? They both Virginia artists.
Man, I gotta
Producers.
go with Timbaland.
Timbaland. Okay.
Most people are gonna say Pharrell. I gotta go with Timbaland.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So since you've been in New York, you've been able to use your handcuffs since you've been in New York?
Once.
Once. Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to. You a chief, so.
Yeah.
But you have. Oh, okay. What do you miss most about? Go ahead. Actually, twice.
It was actually twice. One was the first week. I still had. I didn't realize I was a desk jockey yet, and the other came with sort of like I was on the scene. I was first on scene, so I just had to do what I had to do.
Got to do what you got to do. All right. Still know how to hook them and book them. All right. Cool.
Still got it.
Yeah. What do you miss most about Virginia?
Family. Absolutely.
Family's still there. Okay. All right.
Oh yeah, family's still there. I get every opportunity I get to see them, it's sort of like a reset for me. So yeah, family, definitely. I got family here too now, but definitely family down there.
Right. All right. Pivotal thing that happened in a lot of our lives was 9/11. Do you remember where you were and what you were doing when that happened?
Absolutely. I was on Norfolk State University campus. At that time, my father was assigned to the Pentagon, and we couldn't get in touch with anyone. My brother was at Hampton University, which was 20 minutes away, and I had borrowed a car from one of my college teammates to try to get on the road, grab my brother, scoop him up, and try to drive up 95 to check in on my family And right when I gassed the car up to go pick up my brother, my mother was able to get through. She was able to tell me that my dad was okay. He wasn't in the area that the Pentagon got hit. He was in a different area of the building. So I'll never forget that day. That's probably the last time I had for a long time. That was the last time that I teared up. I didn't used to tear up. So I literally teared up, not knowing what was going on, calling around, not getting through to anyone. So yeah, I remember that. That was tough.
Yeah, that was. Who's the most famous person to ever come out of Norfolk State?
I should know this. No, not by a long shot. We have a lot of sleepers. Man, there's you're gonna give me the line. I'll say my coach Ron Bolton, my position coach while I played there. He played 13 years in the league for the Browns and the Patriots.
Okay.
He was pretty famous as a cornerback. I can still hear his voice in my ear today. But you know, there's quite a few Norfolk State people that quietly are creeping around, you know, making noise. So, and a lot to come. Right now, we're moving. We just got a NFL female referee.
I saw that.
We got a NASCAR pit crew. We're making some moves.
Moving on up. All right. Where else in the world could you see yourself doing your job, you know, as a police chief, if you got the opportunity outside the U.S.?
Man, I would have to say somewhere like Turks and Caicos, somewhere in the island. You know,
there you go.
Yeah, man. Barbados, if that might be it. The weather's always nice, you know.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Everything looks great down there, so Barbados.
Yeah. You in New York now, so you got to pick between these two: Giants or Jets?
Giants.
Okay. You ever been on the subway?
Absolutely.
Okay, you been on the subway? All right.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the subway though. I was traumatized my first. I'll ride the subway. Me and my lady will ride the subway, but you know, I drive. I'm that down south. They can't break it out of me. I drive everywhere I go. Mostly.
Yeah.
But
they say you don't need a car. They say you don't need a car in New York, but you got one.
You don't need one. But I've been driving since 12, so
right.
So,
yeah,
you know. Yeah.
Can't break that old habit. Yeah.
No, can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
All right. Another New York question: Nas or Jay-Z?
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z. Okay.
Definitely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes. What's a popular movie or TV show or song that everybody else loved that you just wasn't feeling?
That Nelly Down Down. I forget the name of the song. It's his biggest hit. Whatever his biggest hit was.
Wait, that one?
Yeah.
Country Grammar?
Yeah, Country Grammar was not it for me. I was like, every time that song comes on, I'm thinking like, what's going on?
You just wasn't feeling
I wouldn't say I dislike this show, but you know what? I've never seen the complete Wire series. I've never seen the complete.
Oh, you need to get up on that. I like that one a lot. You need to get up on that.
I watch everything. For some reason, I've never seen that show. Yeah. I'll put it on the list though.
Get you HBO Max and check that one out. That's the show right there. Last one for you. Yes, what person, living or not, would you like to meet if you had the opportunity?
What person would I like to meet, living or not? Man, I would love to meet Malcolm X.
Okay.
And ask him about his time abroad and what changed his mind to sort of go the Pan-Africanism way.
Yeah.
I would love to have just a long conversation with him about that.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Chief, man. That's good stuff, man. That was your last one. You got through that one unscathed, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
just tell me what you got. I appreciate you. That was good stuff. tell everybody about your department one last time, how they can reach you. If you said you guys are hiring, or you guys got an active hiring going on,
Right now,
what's going on with that?
not currently because of the COVID budget
Okay.
crisis, but we're in New York City, Department of Citywide Administrative Services, Police. We're in New York City. We do the same sort of similar job as the Federal Protective Service and Capitol Police. Always looking for qualified candidates, competent people who are ready to serve their community. And that's us.
That's them. DCAS. All right. Appreciate you, Chief. You be safe out there, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks a lot, Dale. It was a blast, man. Thank you. Be safe.
You too, sir. Take care now. All right, Square Pegs, that's it for this episode of the Black and Blue Podcast. I want to thank Chief Quchee Collins of the New York Department of Citywide Administrative Services Police Department, or DCAS PD, for joining me here today. If you guys out there enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and make sure you like and subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back here in 2 weeks with another great guest. Same black time, same black channel. But till then, y'all know what to do. Stay black in blue. I'll holler at you. Peace.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.